Hello, welcome to Relatable. This is your host, Teresa Freeman. Today I talk with Michelle Adams, Executive Sales Rep. We talk about how to maintain an entrepreneurial spirit throughout the rigorous field of sales. Michelle shares about her experience as a college grad in the early days of selling copiers door to door. And she was recognized for her ability to build strong relationships, and that really kicked off her successful career in sales. We talk about the power of a positive mindset in the wake or in the face of a lot of rejection and a lot of no's in those early days of sales. Lots of great insight. You don't want to miss this episode. Hello and welcome to Relatable. I'm here with Michelle Adams today. Super excited to have a conversation with you. I've been wanting to talk with you for a long time and finally got her in the studio. And Michelle is an executive sales rep. I'm always a little unsure of my titles. So thank you so much for being here. I can't wait to talk to you.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. So we've been friends for a long time. And I feel like we always get into these great conversations about all things, right?
We do.
You have kids, I have kids. We talk about all different aspects of life, and we've talked a bit about your career. And we've had a couple of people on Relatable that have a sales background, but no women. So I've talked to you about that. About your interesting just to hear your perspective on your own career path, what it's like to be in sales, and then particularly like it's an area that I'm super uncomfortable. And now that I've been building my own business and I'm an entrepreneur, it's becoming like, I have to be out there and I have to be doing business development. And when it's something that you love and something you're passionate about, it's easier. I still think there's an art to it that hopefully you're going to give us some inside scoop and can, give us some secrets, but also just tell us a little bit about your path and journey.
Absolutely.
Sound good?
Yes.
Okay, so tell me a bit about just a day in the life right now. Like what is your life like today? Give us, I know probably not one day is like every other, but give us a sense of what a day is like for you.
Okay. So basically I support a $6.5 million medical device territory, and it's about 43 hospitals across the Northern Virginia area, and it's a very large medical device company. So we have a big footprint within the hospitals. So start out in my home office every day, making sure the kids get out the door, and then I'm answering phone calls, emails, and then typically when traffic dies down a little bit, I head out to the hospitals for the day. And that could range, my day could range from anything from meetings with administrators, doctors, nurses, anywhere from the ICUs, anesthesia, emergency department, vascular access teams. And we're doing things like, talking about what type of issues they have in patient care, what type of solutions that I have to help make the doctors' jobs easier, increase their procedural efficiencies, and improve patient outcomes. I could also be working on back orders, contracts, giving presentations to large groups of decision makers. And so that's my typical day. I also partner with clinical educators from my company, and we come in too, and we also teach procedural courses, do bedside insertions with the doctors and nurses, and in servicing on the units with the nursing as well.
That's a lot.
It is a lot.
And how long have you been affiliated in healthcare and medical sales? Like we'll talk more about your path to this point.
Yes.
It's such a explosive area in terms of growth, and it's like even outside of sales from a consulting perspective, or even just working in that kind of healthcare or medical industry, I feel like it's booming and great job security.
It really is. I read something from U.S. News and World Report, and all these medical type of consultancy and careers were right up there.
Booming.
So yes, I've been in for 18 years in medical devices, and my job has definitely grown and changed and become even more involved.
Do you have a team of people that you work with or that help you? When you talked about all those different aspects of your role, how much of that is you self-driving that, or you actually have a support team or people around you that are also helping to inform some of the work that you're doing?
So it's a little bit of both. Part of our culture at my company is to have an entrepreneurial spirit. So we actually are supposed to all manage our own territory like it's our own business. So I do manage that $6 million worth of business, and I'm responsible for maintaining that every year and growing it. And so on top of that though, however, my team is spread out. It's myself and my one nurse educator who live in Northern Virginia.
Okay.
And then the rest of my team, which consists of additional educators, my manager, and then sales reps similar to me, are all throughout Maryland, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey. And then we of course have corporate people who partner, of course, at my company who help me with things like contracts and building of custom device kits for the customers, and they're all out of North Carolina. So.
And tell me just a little bit about how you had to get comfortable with the medical speak, and in terms of, and tell me too, I think it'd be interesting for people to know, these devices that you sell, how expensive, like these devices are massive devices, right, in terms of their cost, or is it a spectrum of what you offer?
So mine is, I'm not doing some of those big expensive devices that are OR based only. Mine are disposables that are typically used when a patient is critically ill or comes in to the emergency department with an acute type of an illness. So they need to have my devices while they're in the hospital to help give them medications and help make them well. I do have other things that are capital equipment that are more expensive, that are a different part of, I guess you'd say, my sales bag that I support as well. So I have capital, but then I have disposables, which are, used day to day in the hospital. But the important thing about my devices is that they help to reduce or eliminate hospital-acquired infections. So that's really what we're partnering with the hospitals, is looking at patient outcomes, looking at how they care and maintain for these devices, how they use them in their procedures, and how we can come in and help make it easier for them and make it better. So that's a lot of what I do. So
then you've got this like added bonus of the fulfillment factor, that you're actually impacting human life. Like, that's pretty extraordinary.
It is. I do feel like what we do matters a lot in my division. Not in all the other divisions. Right. Some of it can be pretty quick, but I do feel that I'm actually there providing value to my customer and helping the hospitals, helping the patients. And so we're just, one of those little extra things in there that helps to make something better when a patient comes in and out of the hospital.
Tell me, so then is it more for what you're talking about, is it volume? Like in terms of, because they're just the volume in terms of making that number. And then tell me also, which we'll maybe talk more about this too, just the competitive aspect of sales, and how, when you say you're an entrepreneur and you're responsible for your own territory, are you competing against what you did last year, or is it you actually have some competition? I always hear, right, that sales is so cutthroat and it's so competitive, and it's all sort of driven by, did you make the number or not? Yeah, so just tell me, like, living in a job like that would be, that's why I think I've avoided sales for most of my career, is just that I didn't want that extra burden of, this is the measure you have to hit, and if you don't,
every year,
it's like clean slate, starting over every year.
It is. Every year at the beginning of the year, I think, oh no, this is going to be the year. This is going to be the year that I don't do well. So January, I'm very stressed. But it's a little bit of everything. So I am competing against my number the year before, and then it's always raised. So I have to maintain what I did the year before and then increase. So that is volume based as well. So I'm competing against myself, but I'm also competing against, there are competitors out there.
Right.
I have multiple groupings of products that all tie into each other, and my company is the leader in probably 2 of those segments. So the great thing there is I'm more upgrading what they currently have, providing them with maybe a custom solution or better components within their kits that they use, and so that's what I'm doing there. But I also spend a lot of time with my customers, checking in with them, making sure that they're happy, solving any issues that they have, covering back orders, providing them with education, and always reminding them why they use me as compared to my competitors, because there's always someone that's ready to come in there and undercut me. And so I have to be very knowledgeable about their tactics and their products. Yeah. And kind of
how do you know that? Is it just because you're in the same industry, so you see them, or are there people within your organization that are responsible to get that intel?
Yes, so like our marketing and training teams get a lot of the intel. The sales reps, we are the customer facing of the group, so we often gather a lot of the intel as well, just from talking with our customers and always asking. Like now that I've been there 18 years, there's some hospitals that I have really, really good relationships, so they'll call and tell me, hey, you know, somebody else is getting brought onto our value analysis meeting to take your business away. And then I go on high alert and call everybody I know and start a whole mess.
So it's okay. I'm gonna ask one more question about that. Then I really want to talk about you. You have some great stories about how you started out and how you got to this point of being very successful and being 18. Did you say 18 years? How long have you been there?
18 years in medical, and then I sold copiers for 8 years.
Yes, we're gonna talk about that.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. We were in a meeting the other day, and we were talking to somebody that was the head of growth for a analytics organization, and he was talking about the sales function and how it's a relationship business, right? It's all about the relationships. And what was interesting and funny is that in the room was the head of product. And he jokingly said, this is probably going to piss him off, but it really doesn't matter what the product is. And he was being like tongue-in-cheek. Obviously it does. Yet the sales engine and the sales function, he was drawing kind of a bright line between what that requires, and that relationship aspect is its own entity. And I think I've always integrated those things almost too much to the extent that I didn't understand that it's a unique art that's separate from that. And so once you're done with your part, then the product people, and that's a whole nother thing of being able to maintain what you sold, right? So
yes,
tell me a little bit just about that, and the fact that you were just talking about relationships in terms of them calling you. Like how long does it take to cultivate that? And I don't know if it's an easy kind of methodology to explain, but I'm curious about that and what your reaction is to that.
Yes, so I really think to be successful in the long term in sales, you have to be a consultative relationship builder, basically, and you have to bring value to your customer and help them to either solve a problem, help them to become better because you're working with them. It's really easy to come in and meet with your customer and kind of data dump everything that you've learned about your product and think you know what it is that they need, but that really does not provide you with any type of true relationship building or collaboration with your customer, because they just see you as somebody peddling a product, or
they can feel that, right? Like they know that it's not authentic, but if it's just to get the sale or just to, get the win.
Yeah. So, truly to do well and to make your number year after year and to be successful, you really do have to be a good relationship builder. And it takes a lot of practice. A lot of people think if you can just talk to somebody that you're a good salesperson. And it's so not true. You have to, you have to work hard on those skills. There's plenty of classes and courses that I've gone to learn how to ask the right questions and draw information out of people. But really what it comes down to, I truly think, is being an expert in your field, being an expert in your product, and knowing how, in my case, the specific hospital works and what their needs and wants are. But when you're meeting with somebody, to really actively listen, which has been one of my hardest challenges over the years, because I'm already thinking in advance what I want to say, and then I miss things. So to be able to slow down, actively listen, and hear maybe what their unmet needs are, and get ideas for what they truly need, whether it's devices, education,
Right.
all different things can, you can bring as a solution and provide value. And once you really listen and can bring a solution to them, then you're truly seen as a partner and they will come to you first. So my largest hospitals that I've worked with for so long, they call me for every division in my company. Who do I talk to here? I need this. Can you help me? And it's because I've been working with them and helping them for so long. And you have to, you have to be on top of things and be in front of things too. So if something's going to go bad or their product's going to go in back order, you need to make them aware in advance so there's no surprises.
Yeah.
And
it's so interesting because I think what you're describing also, it's this continuum. So you're always thinking about that customer and the value that you can add, not just at the beginning of the year when you need to set your number, right? So it's this, and you were alluding to this before, which again, I think is something that's a skill that's learned. And this applies actually in any job that you're in. I think it translates where, what's your value? How do you add that value? And are you consciously working that, not in a manipulative way, but in a way that is serving your customer, if that's what you're trying to do, is create something of value for them. And so it's just not always the obvious, right? It's that deferred or delayed gratification that you're always putting effort into. And it's probably above and beyond what is like in the job description or what someone would characterize as like, this is your role as a sales rep for this organization.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about how it started. And maybe I think we've talked about this before, but I do think it's interesting. What was your degree in? And did you think that this was going to be your career?
No, I did not. So coming out of high school, I just knew I wanted to be in business. And I thought, okay, I like talking and networking with people, and I'm very busy and
I like to be
everything.
Busy. Yeah.
So I went into marketing management and loved being at Virginia Tech, loved my classes, but I really realized at that point that I didn't have that creative type of brain to be in a traditional marketing role, such as a product manager or advertising, and thought, I need to do something else with my skills. I'm not sure quite what. And thought about real estate, but that was when the market wasn't doing very well. And my dad encouraged me to interview for sales. So I started interviewing with different companies and sales roles. And then we had a family friend who was a successful manager in copier sales. And he said, hey, I got you an interview. So I interviewed with his company, and because he liked it there, I was young, and I said, okay, I'll give it a shot. So that's how I ended up in copier sales, which is not what I had originally envisioned. It's a tough job, and I started out literally like a week out of school, and some of my friends were off traveling or studying for the CPA exam, and I was literally going business to business in Washington, D.C., getting rejected every day, cold calling. And so I worked hard every day, and then I came home and cried. I cried at dinner literally almost every single night. And I thought, what am I doing? Do I have what it takes? Do I have the grit to be successful in sales? And that type of sales was just really tough. So started interviewing, and I interviewed in staffing and got flown to Boston, went up and met a VP, got offered a job to become, it still was sales, but more like staffing type of sales. Right. And so got home and was thinking about it, and it just kept weighing on my mind, am I going to always remember that I failed at my first job? And so, I don't know, I just think about it and I'm like, wow,
That you actually stuck with it, or that you had the resilience to, because that's really, so I think it's so important what you're sharing, because I don't think people see the end result and they see people that are successful, and they don't necessarily understand the grit and that rejection and what that feels like, and to be someone who can be in that discomfort until it till it's not as uncomfortable.
Yes.
So the fact that you did that and like you kind of dug deep, like and that was just your own, it wasn't like someone else necessarily was there coaching you, was it just your own reflection of like, I don't necessarily want to give up yet?
It was my own. Yeah, I think part of it was just making a decision to change my mindset and having pride in myself and thinking, all right, I'm going to do this till I'm good at it and then I can leave. Like I gave myself like, okay, you have permission to leave once you're good at it. So, and I wasn't making hardly any money at that point too. And so I was like, all right, just going to dig in. And I had some great mentors where I work. So I think just that change of mindset. And as you get older, now I really see how important a positive versus a negative mindset is.
Yeah.
When you're younger and you're just in your head,
And you're so you don't have any experience, you don't have anything to benchmark that against. You don't understand that like for every every 20 no's there's maybe a yes. Like I don't, you could tell us the stats on that. But I think it's terrifying. That's why not a lot of people pursue it, right?
It was. Yeah, and so I really, really did, build a tough skin, resilience, which was great. And I was pretty young, obviously, right out of college. So my managers, I worked at a smaller company, they started to see that I was better at relationships than kind of that quick sale.
Right.
So they pretty quickly moved me into named accounts and then into a major accounts role. So I could actually worked with universities, law firms, large businesses downtown. And so that was where I really had success because I did have, learn how to negotiate a business deal. I had to develop long-term relationships to wait until they were ready to purchase their larger deals, because that's not just a quick sale.
Yeah.
And, just really developed a lot of my business acumen in that role, which helped me so much now.
Do you remember like your first big sale, like your first where you were like this, maybe where that you were like, okay, I feel like I'm good at this now. Like, and what was it? And what'd you do with the money?
REAL-ATABLE is sponsored by TFA Soft Skills, your one-stop shop for workshops, coaching, speaking, and soft skills development. If you'd like to hire Teresa, visit www.tfasoftskills.com for more information.
I totally went shopping. Yes. So there's a lot of small deals, but about 2 years in, I got a job at a larger organization in the actual major account team, and I was calling on this place, and I got my first $250,000 PO, and I was beyond thrilled.
Right.
We had very, very small salaries at that point.
Right.
I know it's way improved since then.
Like you're saying, it's all commission based. Like
it was almost all commission based
Yeah.
back then. So I did. The next month I got a really nice commission check, and I paid off my school loans with that check, and they weren't extraordinary school loans, but I paid off my school loans. They were like, I'm gonna say like $12,000 or $14,000,
which is a lot.
And
you don't have any money.
Yes, got myself a new suit. And then at that point, I'd always wanted an Acura Legend, and friends of ours had a used one, and I put a down payment and bought myself a used car, and I was thrilled. Like I felt like I'd finally come to a point where, okay, I can be successful in this, and I'm free of debt, and
How long
can
did
do
that
this.
take? Like if you think back, how long did it take to get, because I think that's an important thing to note, like, what was that grind like before you had that feeling of, I can do this?
It probably was about 2 years.
Yeah.
Luckily by then I had a great group of coworkers, so if I had a stressful day coming up, like some of them would say, I'll go with you. Me and back me up and help me out, and just had a great manager and a mentor on that team at that second job as well, and really helped to teach me how to be more of a consultative type of a salesperson. So I learned so much back then.
When you were younger, let's say like in high school or even in college, and you think about, are you someone who academics or even other, socially, just broadly academically, are you someone that things kind of were easy for you? Do you feel like that all was like you hadn't necessarily run into a lot of difficulty or friction? Was that the first time? Or tell me a little bit about that, kind of who you were and that how that developed. Or were you always someone that was like very hardworking, and if you put in the hard work you got the result, and so that was also jarring when that didn't happen quite the way you expected?
I had such a nice upbringing, nice little community area similar to where our kids are, and I was shy when I was young, so my mom always pushed me out of my shell. So then in high school, I was very outgoing, involved in everything. I did study a lot, but my grades reflected that, so I did well with my grades. I got into college I wanted to, and was involved in almost everything I could be. So when I went to college, I also became very involved at Virginia Tech. I was in a sorority. I was a senator of the business school, VP of the marketing club. I had a great time. So those things came easily. My grades were not as good in college because I was focused, I think, a little more on that. But, I don't think I felt overly stressed about it. It was really when it came down to starting to interview and start off my professional life that I really was like, wow, this is really scary.
Yeah.
And I've got to really dig deep and figure this out. So, yeah.
I think that's interesting for people that you hear about it too when people excel in high school and it's very easy and they don't have to work very hard, and then they get to college and it's like they haven't really cultivated study skills, or they haven't been through something that they couldn't just figure out, and they have this drop off. And I think it's, I'm sure, very much the case the same when you graduate and you start that new job, especially if it doesn't feel like it's clicking or you feel like you're failing and you haven't experienced that.
Yes.
For sure. Tell me about then how the kind of the dig deep part and the resilience part, and where that came from, right? Like, and the other thing that's kind of striking me too as we're talking is, are you someone, at least at that time, that was always very like you have to do it on your own? And how have you, are you still like that? Like, has that been a lesson for you in life in terms of like there are resources and there's people to help if you ask?
Yes. So yes, when I first started out when I was younger, absolutely, I thought that before I interviewed, I thought, oh, I've got this, I can handle this. And that, like I said, that's when the uncertainty came, even just starting to interview for sales positions and getting out there into the working world. So I definitely am tough on myself. I always have been, but even more so back then. I was that person that definitely thought I needed to go and do that. And started to learn pretty quickly that having extra resources or people to back you up and teach you and show you the way, mentors, really, really are so important and pretty critical in your career development, especially at a younger age. Now I've been at the same company for 18 years and there's been bumps along the way and I've learned and grown, so I feel pretty confident in what I do. However, I do have a team that surrounds me that I reach out to for help on a regular basis, such as my clinical team that, I really rely on for their expertise and help, my manager who's really amazing. So I have no problem calling in help.
Well, it's so good because I think that was also something for me, even I was always the people, I was always the friend people came and told their problems to. I was always the one that seemed to have their stuff together. And then if you're that person and it's not, you're not together, it's very hard to understand how asking for help is actually an evolved way of being. Because you think it's all you, but it's not, and it's a very limited view. And how being open to that help, and also you know, even now, you know, not feeling like you know everything, like you having that openness of, I'm curious, I know there's more I can learn, I know even though I've spent time mastering this, there's still opportunities to be educated.
There are,
You know,
absolutely.
and being open
Yes.
to that. Tell me about just being a woman and being in sales and how you've seen that change, because I'm curious. I'm assuming that when you started, you were probably one of few. So you know, and maybe it matters in industry. I'm just curious for you, how, whether that's been a factor or not been a factor, how you've had to manage that. I think we've talked some about you're passionate about developing and helping other women progress and
Yes.
mature in their career. So just tell me for you, you know, any good stories there of like that you had to, you know, overcome, or that you were like, what is going on? And it mostly just because you're a woman.
My company was acquired by a larger company, and we have really, really expanded and grown, and women in leadership has become a very big thing. It wasn't until probably 3 or 4 years ago that we even had a female manager win Manager of the Year, because there had been so few female managers in the past. Now I would have to say that it really, the culture has become bring in the person who is the best for the job, and we're at least 50-50 or even more heavily female oriented on the sales force, on the marketing teams, the management teams as well. And there are specific programs that have been put together for us to help us navigate the workforce. Like I said, women in leadership. I help and work on peak performance, which is basically like helping people learn how to master their mindset, you know, be more positive and, you know, change their self-talk and believe in themselves to overcome obstacles. So that's something that I'm involved in and help with at work, which is fun. So,
all right, I want to talk about that because I think you could give us some great insight there. One last thing on just the fact that it was male dominated, or in an industry that maybe celebrates, or where men are maybe naturally more successful. I don't know if that's the case. I don't want a bunch of women in sales to come after me. I don't know the stats on that, but for you to kind of get through that, what was your mindset? And because I think many people could go to that, it's not fair, I'm not being treated the same, you know, and go and kind of go spiral into a negative kind of reactive, I'm a victim. So how did you not do that, and how did you stay the course to get to the point now where you feel like you know, there's been some involvement in it?
Well, luckily for me, I love being in sales and I did not want to climb the corporate ladder. So due to the fact that I wanted to continue to manage my own territory and stay in the sales side of things, I don't feel like it affected me as much as it probably did affect other people. But I've always had, you know, other women on my sales teams with me, so we always rely on each other. So it's amazing to talk about it now with the type of culture that my company is now and how amazing things are. To think that it wasn't that long ago that it was really different. Yes. And I think a lot of that has to do with leadership and the type of culture that they want to put forward. And luckily, you know, I would say maybe the past, you know, 9 or 10 years, our leadership at my company has been, you know, very focused on developing people, developing the best people, making sure that you're happy and that you want to stay. And so,
I'm sending Luke to you when he graduates.
You should.
Because I think he would be great. Yes. I'll send all of them, actually.
It's a great career. It really is. People don't really understand, I don't think, what I do, but
yeah. And I think the piece that you talked about in terms of where there's accounts that have already grown and there's a relationship, and then the way even you talked about that, where there's options within that career to flex whatever skills, right? There's different parts of a sales process. I think is a long-winded way of what I'm trying to say. And that depending on where your strengths are and how you might fit into that, there's lots of options. It's not just one way that you can participate in that kind of career.
No, that's absolutely
Yeah.
correct. Yes.
Tell me about peak performance, and I think that's going to translate into some of the questions I have just around critical success factors. People that are thinking about this type of career. But tell me about peak performance and some of the things you've learned there, and how important that's been.
Okay.
And give us like the skinny.
I will. So probably about 5 years or so ago, our company brought in another organization to teach us all of these concepts. And, they really focus on emotional intelligence and really focusing on your own self in terms of, I would say, how your mind works in general, and being able to be the master of your own mind and how you talk to your own self and why that matters. And so the focus really is on, you don't have to stay with the status quo. You can actually change the way you think and the way that you see things through affirmations, positive self-talk, goal settings, a lot of different ways that you can work towards that. And there's a lot of science behind it. It's pretty amazing. Just learning how to stop that negative self-talk, and instead of saying, wow, I'm really awful at this. Instead, you can turn it into, okay, I have not mastered this skill yet. However, I am going to spend this amount of time every week to work on improving myself in these areas, and this is how I can do it. And so breaking up your large goals into smaller goals and celebrating those. And a lot of that goes hand in hand too, I think, with emotional intelligence as well. So once you kind of master your own way of thinking, and really allows you to then move forward and set your own goals personally and professionally in that way. So
do you think it's so interesting on the positive self-talk? So there's and when you talk about the science and I think it's like neural pathways, right? Or the way that there's this thing. Have you heard of ACEs? I don't know, I forget exactly what it stands for, but it's a program that was initiated out in California, and it was a way for doctors to be able to talk with children and adolescents and youth about their situation that had survived trauma in some way. And it was an assessment for doctors and medical people to be able to help people that were in maybe traumatic situations. And this ACEs is there's 12 categories of different parts of your development. And trauma, as we know it, people think of very dramatic degrees of trauma, but the study shows that it's not like you can grow up in a very healthy and nurturing environment, but there are certain things that you need developmentally that you don't necessarily get just because we're human and not every human's and when that happens, something actually happens to your brain and the way that it develops and these neural pathways are created. And so the idea of positive self-talk, or the idea of what you're talking about, can actually reconfigure or change the way that those things were and poor God, I'm not a medical person, right? But the way that they were sort of configured, that's the way I can, in layman's terms.
Yes. Yeah, there's actually a part of your brain called the reticular activating system, and it actually blocks out anything that it doesn't think you want to see. So if you keep telling yourself something negative over and over again, that part of your brain thinks this is important, we're going to focus on it. So if you can start to change the way you talk to yourself, then that portion of your mind starts to focus on the more positive things and find those type of, identify those types of opportunities for you in your subconscious.
It's so crazy.
If that makes sense.
It does make sense. And would you say, are you someone then, are you daily doing positive affirmations and gratitude? Do you journal? We read a lot about the manifestation of positivity and seeing, in terms of your own success. Do you tell me a little bit about, I'm sure it intersects here to some.
If you'd like to advertise with REAL-ATABLE, Please email us at info@tfasoftskills.com for more information.
Yeah, so I have plenty of colleagues that do journal, and I don't. I've thought about it,
Yeah.
and then it just hasn't happened. So I try to make it a point every day to just take a few minutes and just focus on what I'm grateful for, and that I'm capable and competent to do what I'm setting out to do, whether that's with work or maybe being patient with my children or being a good mother or wife. And so it may change situationally. I do have specific affirmations or mantras that are on my desk for me to look at every day. They're just kind of on some sticky notes, and those typically pertain to what my goal is for the year. If there's certain things that I'd like to accomplish in my sales career, I do actually print those up and keep them on my desk as a daily reminder and a goal to work towards. So,
how disciplined are you in terms of the plan that you're executing against? And right, because I'm curious how much of it is oh, it's just going to work out because I'm a good relationship person versus you have a certain discipline and a methodology that you're following routinely that creates the success.
It's a little bit of both. You have to be kind of flexible with your plan.
Yeah.
Taking care of so many hospitals, and there's always surprises, ups and downs.
Yeah.
As it is, it's like the 80-20 rule. I have 20% of my hospitals make up over 80% of my business. And so those are my true main focus year after year. It's very important to always be in front of my customers to, like I said, maintain my business, but I have to develop new opportunities, and I have to learn what's going on within those hospitals so that I can basically fill that funnel and know where I'm going to bring in new revenue. So that's very, very important. And so I typically am working on a large amount of new opportunities or upgrades at the same time, but I tend to focus maybe on getting the top 5 that are closest to closing or coming to fruition, making sure that I'm focused on moving that forward every single week, while in the background I'm still working on my other long-term projects that I know are going to take me a lot longer to get done.
So it sounds too like you have to I don't know if multitask is the right word, but it's not. How do I describe it? It just sounds like there's a lot of inputs to what you do, and that you're almost context shifting all the time throughout your day to whatever is the goal of that particular lane that you're focused on.
Yes.
All right, tell me a little bit about people that are interested in sales and critical success factors. From now that you've been in it for so long, you're seeing junior people come in now, and I'm really curious about, maybe we can start here, what are some of the gaps you're seeing, right, in terms of people that want to go in this path, and what you're seeing, and what could people develop or strengthen before they start their career in sales?
Absolutely. So I do think that when you're younger and you're learning, or you are making a career change and you want to come into sales, so one of the important things I think is to find a company that has the culture that you want to work at, because I have done it once who have not, and to find a product that you believe in and are passionate about, because that actually will really shine through when you talk to your customers, and makes your job easier. If you don't feel good about what you're there to talk about, it makes everything so much harder. So I think that really taking the time to dig in and get to know your field, whether it's business, whether it's IT, whether it's medical, and you need to get to know your products in and out, your competitors' products. For me, it's how does this specific hospital work? Who are the decision makers? How do they interact in departments with each other? And so really getting to know your customers and your products and your company so that you're knowledgeable and you're an expert in your field. It's going to take a lot of hard work the first couple of years as you try to match up everything you're learning and being able to talk about that fluidly.
Right. Like what you're talking about.
Yes, and matching up any skills that you are learning as far as your soft skills, like learning how to sell or to collaborate or communicate, like those types of things. It takes a couple years to put everything together. What I see of newer people is they're so excited to get out there and they've learned so much that they don't listen to the customer. They basically do their whole presentation, they don't take a breath, they don't ask any questions, and then they leave feeling really good. But unfortunately, it just looked like they were pushing their agenda and they didn't ask what that customer really needs. And so I think you can have short-term success in sales and have a great year and do well and have a lot of bad years if you're not being a value-added partner to your customers. So I think, taking a step back, taking a breath, and actually listening. And once you're able to actively listen, you start to think of those questions that are important. And the more questions you ask and learn more about the situation, you start to uncover unmet needs and you can bring in solutions to help them. And I think once you're actually partnering or seen as a value-added partner, that's where your relationship really gets brought in, and they'll come back to you year after year. Or, if there's something going wrong, instead of just kicking you out, they'll bring you in and talk with you about it and give you the chance to.
It's so interesting, the active listening. So we're working on something right now where we're working with a specific school where we might go in and do a lot of our workshops on communication and public speaking. And so we had a deck, right, what we're calling our pitch deck, when we sat down with this person that we were going to talk with, and we spent a lot of time cultivating that deck, right, and knowing the inputs that we have to why we think it's going to be of value. So we sat down with the person, we with like a friendly environment, went to lunch, right, and we're going through, and there was a lot of commentary that was not in the deck that she had, that was the point of view of who we're going to be talking to. And so to be open to that and to be open to really hearing, like, you have to almost forfeit, not that all your prep and that discipline of prep, that's important too. You have to be prepared and you have to know what your point of view is. You also have to be open enough and use your judgment to say, oh, that's really good, and I didn't think of that, and that takes you got to take your ego out of it and really be in that active listening mode, which is hard. Like, if you put a lot of energy into something and you're like, isn't it pretty? Look what I did.
I still struggle with it all the time. I try and I interrupt. Like, stop doing that. Yeah. So yes, it is.
And we talked too, I think I'm going to dovetail into the soft skill stuff, because we've had great conversations about what you're seeing just in terms of interviewing and people being able to have a conversation and look you in the eye. Tell me a little bit about what you're seeing just from candidates and how some of the gaps you're seeing on the soft skill side.
Well, I haven't. I've only actually just helped interview somebody yesterday. And she was actually fantastic at it. I haven't interviewed as much recently, but I do help to bring new reps into the field and work with them and help. And
what about public speaking in terms of people presenting in front of groups, and to your point around getting in front of some of your clients? What are you seeing with some of those skills?
So the amazing thing, my one educator, Desiree, she actually was always nervous and would talk too fast, and she went to Toastmasters. Yeah. And she worked really hard, and it's amazing now to see her poise and how she's become so comfortable and takes a breath instead of getting worked up. Yeah. So she's been somebody who's been wonderful to watch. I, on the other hand, I do really well presenting to my customers or maybe to my specific team. But then when it gets into a larger setting of my peers, maybe at a sales meeting, that's when I get quite nervous and have to take a breath.
What do you do to manage your anxiety, or to if you start to get nervous? What are some of the things that you do?
It's really more just deep breaths and try to calm myself down. I also probably obsessively go over every single word I'm going to say.
You're a big preparer.
People, yes, yes. I gave
Yeah.
a presentation in February and I had even more notes than I did here. And I practiced out loud
Yeah.
by myself at home. Yes. So
I feel like preparation is so, like when it comes to public speaking, we teach a lot of workshops with that, and I think the preparation piece of you feeling comfortable with the content is almost like that. Once you have that down, then you can handle whatever comes your way on the day, but it should feel so routine and comfortable that it's then not even on your mind in terms of like, oh, I have to find the right word, or do I even really know what I'm talking about?
yes,
Yeah.
yes, because you don't want to sound like you're reading from a script. And if
For
I
sure.
don't prepare, that's exactly what I sound like. So
Okay, so just a couple more. What about, like, from your perspective on the soft skills side, do you see are critical in I mean, we've talked about some of them I think already, but I'm curious if you had to pick two in the role of sales or in the career that you've had. What do you think are the ones that are most important?
So basically, I think in sales, soft skills are everything. It is key to being successful. I really think, and I think I've probably thrown these words out, but being collaborative is so important. Being able to have a relationship and listen with your customers is key. I think allowing them to be your priority and not your own goals.
Mm-hmm.
And also, though, as I've gotten more advanced in this career, realizing that they have a responsibility to me as well to fulfill their portion of their commitment. So once they commit to working with me and I'm working for them, I do need follow-up and help from them as well. So that's actual collaboration instead of just
like one directional.
Yes. So I think that that's really important. And then communication, and that could be all types of things. That could be, like you said, your public speaking, having a concise, informative email that actually provides the information that you promised and doesn't ask too many questions. That's important that you really think through that. Having open communication in the good and the bad, like I mentioned. So, I have a product that is really important for patients who are sick. So if it's going to go on back order, I can't leave my customers hanging out there. I can't allow them to be surprised. So I need to be proactive and forthcoming and just say, hey, we have to work on something in advance to make sure that you all are taken care of. So always answering the phone, but then having these nice back and forth conversations. So I think, there's so many ways that communication is really important. And even if you have a customer that's continually using their product, just checking in with them every couple months, seeing what initiatives they have coming up and how you can support them. It's just important to always be top of mind. So,
all right, and then just on the art of no, like people you getting no or trying to turn that. I mean, I know that's probably a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
I guess the question I would have is how do you bounce back from that? Maybe that's just in terms of if you are like you were earlier in your career and it was so harsh, what is it that you do to stay the course or to bounce back from that and not take it personally?
Right. That's hard. That's what I was going to say. So it takes a long time for you to decide that it's not personal against you, for you to be able to see it as a business decision. And that's why it is so important in sales to have a large amount of things going on
at one time
and trying to balance some different projects so that if you lose one, you have others going on.
Some backups.
It is. In my field, there's some things that, there's a few of my products that I may spend like 2 years in the sales cycle to try to come to fruition. And so while I'm working on those long terms, I have to have a bunch of smaller things, say maybe an upgrade of a current product, so that I can continue to make my number, get a paycheck, and succeed in the business. But it's those big projects that when you don't get those are the ones that are really hard. And so there have been times that I've been disappointed, definitely, and disappointed in myself and the situation. And just talking to your mentors and allowing them to provide you with feedback for the next time. sometimes I go back and look at what I've accomplished over the years and I say, hey, wait, I've done all this. I did this.
Yeah.
And I'm capable of continuing to do that. And so, just trying to let it go.
Yeah.
And there's also certain situations that you may see it happening that maybe your customers do not. And so you also have to know when to let go of those and refocus somewhere else. So
there's something about athletes that I love, like really good competitive athletes that have amnesia, where they're just able to leave that point behind, leave the loss behind, whatever, and just in that clean slate start over. Like, you get another opportunity tomorrow. And sometimes when I'm in that headspace, I just try to, this was now, this was today, this is not a life sentence. Like, just, it's the start, it's the reset, it's reset. And you just kind of get yourself into that mindset. Okay, last question is just about, as you think about your career and really how you've evolved and matured, and you think about maybe, the copier first year yourself, but just what advice, right, when you think back in terms of just, and whether it's personal, it doesn't all have to be professional, like in terms of, you have a young daughter, right, that's a junior or sophomore, but
yeah,
close
she
to
will
being
be a junior.
Yeah. I was thinking, because I have all boys and I don't necessarily think of the same way, but maybe it's easier because you have a daughter. But what advice, right, would you give yourself that's like to make the path a little bit easier, or to help mitigate some of that pain and anguish?
Absolutely. So, I'm always very encouraging of other people, but not always so much for myself. So I think, I wish I could go back and tell myself, you're capable, all you need to do is be persistent and work hard, and this will pay off in the end, and just allow myself to be my own cheerleader. And I try to instill that with my kids, as you were saying, just, you're capable of anything. You just have to work hard at it, and there will be setbacks, but that's how you learn. And one of the quotes that was popping around our meetings this year was, no challenge, no change. So you could stay the status quo, or you can push yourself and be uncomfortable. Yeah. And then see growth and success. Yeah. So
I love that. And I think that's that kind voice. Not the like, you can sit on the couch and eat whatever you want. Yes. Because that voice often wins out for me.
Me too.
It's the kind, like, you've got this, you're capable, not letting what you would consider to be a failure define. I mean, it's so easy to say.
It
and
is.
Even as adults, like, hard to do. So I love that. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you
It was
so
fantastic.
much.
It was like, went by so fast. I feel like we just like,
I didn't.
No, you didn't. You're nuts at all. Thank you so much. Appreciate you being here, Michelle. And we'll see you next time on
Thank you,
Relatable.
Teresa.
Yay, thank you.
Thank you, Michelle, for joining us. Appreciate your insight on the importance of active listening, collaboration, and being consultative with clients. Also, really important to have that positive self-talk, especially in the face of rejection and all of those no's and challenges. Thank you to Missy for producing this episode, and to Hannah for your support. A big thank you to our Relatable community for listening. If you enjoyed this conversation, please take a moment and subscribe either on YouTube or on your favorite streaming platform. Relatable is sponsored by TFA Soft Skills. You can find out more about our sponsor at www.tfasoftskills.com. And until next time, this is Teresa Freeman with Relatable. Stay connected.